MPW stock has had a small run-up as of recently after the big drop they experienced in early January. This could be simply a standard earnings run-up. Somebody in my Discord speculated it could be people looking for the dividend, though it has the hallmarks of what a lot of people would consider a yield trap, so I'm not sure if that's the case. Another possibility is that it's simply chart readers, people who go off of technical analysis, getting into the stock because it's meeting some of their criteria. A portion, I'm sure, are long-term focused investors like myself, just seeing this as a solid value proposition at today's price and a good chance to either enter for the first time or to average down if you're already in. Also, with the extraordinary amount of short interest in this, I'm sure that some of the price movement could be down to people jumping in hoping for a short squeeze, or perhaps some of it could be shorts covering their positions, although I don't think that's the majority of these short positions. I believe if we saw a large number of them moving to cover, that we would see a much more dramatic movement in the price. And personally, I'm hoping that they do that when it's at a much less attractive valuation for them. I assume those of you watching have probably already seen part 1 where I introduced you to the lawsuit that MPW filed against Viceroy Research, whose basically purpose is to profit off of short sales in companies like MPW. And this is basically part 2, where I'm essentially going to go a little further into the lawsuit. So the next part, this is about where we left off before. They go over the parties in the lawsuit, who's the plaintiff, MPW. They describe a little bit about who they are, what they do, acquire, develop, invest in community healthcare facilities. That shouldn't be news if you're investing in the company. This is also getting into, the jurisdictional issues surrounding this, basically why the federal court in Alabama has jurisdiction in this case. As you know, there was previously a Viceroy situation that was similar to this, where they basically had the case dismissed because of a jurisdictional defect. So, of course, they want to outline why this court has jurisdiction here in order for the lawsuit to proceed. There is some background historical stuff about who founded MPW and when, what their basic business model is, which is acquiring community healthcare facilities and leasing them to tenant operators. I know, groundbreaking stuff. Now, if you want to check the PDF, because I am going through it a little bit more briefly for this section, because I think a lot of this is preamble. The link will be in the description. They do go over their method of evaluating the hospitals that they acquire. Good physical quality, good history of maintenance, strong market with measurable patient demand. Of course, you want that. Geographic environment that's favorable, and strong EBITDARM, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, management fees. And such a hospital that fits all those criteria has a good chance of financial performance regardless of any one operator's issues. They go on to describe the ways in which this model has been stress tested and proved over time. They describe a joint venture where they acquired 8 hospitals for $1.7 billion. And this was back in 2016 to 2018. Basically, the properties performed as hoped, yielding $475 million in income for a medical properties trust, and then were sold at a healthy profit. The model has an additional point where it was stress tested. In October 2022, the operator Pipeline Health System, which leased hospitals from MPT in Los Angeles, had losses on Chicago hospitals, which resulted in them doing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. MPT didn't own the Chicago hospitals, but the company that was leasing from them in Los Angeles still had to file bankruptcy, but this was a contingency that MPW had planned for. Basically, their master leases are tied to the performance of the specific facilities, and are pretty ironclad. And even in the event of this restructuring, MPT can still expect to get what is due to them. Some of the rent was deferred, but will be repaid with interest on the remaining balance in 2024. So essentially, even in an instance where they rented to the, let's call it the healthcare version of Michael Scott from The Office, MPW is still getting paid what is owed to them based on the strength of the facilities that they specifically buy and their master leases. Now, back to the lawsuit real quick. So, as a public company, Medical Properties Trust is required to have its annual financial statements audited by an independent public accounting firm. Since 2008, MPW has used PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP as their independent auditor. Every year from 2008 to present, PwC has issued an unqualified opinion that MPT's financial statements present fairly in all respects the financial position of the company and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the relevant periods in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. Meaning, according to the independent auditor, there's nothing wrong with the numbers. They're not cooking the books, juicing the stats, or anything like that. So basically, if you think that there's financial fraud happening here, you would have to basically say it's been happening right under the nose of PwC and they somehow haven't noticed. In case you might be wondering, PwC is part of the Big Four, meaning they're one of the 4 largest professional services networks in the world, meaning they're a very big accounting firm and they service a lot of very high-end clients. PwC is extremely competitive. It's very difficult to get a job there. They accept only about 2.5% of applicants from the research I was able to find. And according to Vault, they are ranked as the most prestigious accounting firm, for whatever that's worth. And they have the biggest number of Fortune 100 audit clients. So I would simply ask people who are short, who do you trust more, PwC or Viceroy Research? And we haven't even gotten into the juiciest bits about Viceroy yet. I'm going to skip over the part where they describe what short selling is and why they face unlimited risk and what the incentives are for distorting. Instead, we'll just, get right to the meat and potatoes here. As a result, some short sellers choose to load the dice by publishing, funding, or otherwise promoting false and misleading information about the companies they bet against. Short sellers can drive down the company's stock prices and generate profit for themselves. Investment analysts without short positions but who recommend that their readers short a company may also join in to preserve their reputation and maximize subscription dollars. And I think they actually mentioned this earlier in the suit, which was in my part 1 video. Short selling is perfectly legal here, but publishing false information to maximize profits is not. And this is what the defamation suit is really all about. They call these short and distort campaigns, and they are recognized by the Securities and Exchange Commission as a form of illegal market manipulation. So MPW is sort of asserting that Viceroy is defaming them in order to conduct an illegal short and distort campaign. So the plot, it does thicken. This is where the lawsuit starts to actually become full circle. As we remember, which we just discussed a few minutes ago, PwC, the independent auditor, has found no real issue with MPW's reporting of their numbers, whereas Viceroy and Fraser John Paring have accused MPW of fraud and misleading investors and that kind of thing. So this is the character of Viceroy Research and their partner Paring, as compared with the prestigious accounting firm PwC. Notice if you can see the difference, the stark contrast. Before crowning himself a, quote, grand poobah of short selling, Paring was a social worker in Lincolnshire County, England. So I don't know what takes somebody from social worker to professional short seller, but here we go. He resigned after the Health Professions Council, a public regulatory body for social workers in the United Kingdom, investigated his failure to notify a young child's aunt and uncle before recommending that that child be put up for adoption. A recommendation that would have had, quote, extreme consequences for the child. The council found that Paring subsequently, quote, created false records to, quote, cover up, quote, his significant failure, and then threatened to refer his manager to the police when confronted with these facts. Sounds like a stand-up guy. Ultimately, the council determined that Paring had engaged in, quote, deliberate, persistent, and dishonest conduct and created the, quote, significant potential for, quote, serious harm, concluding that Paring's outright dishonesty would be regarded as such by right-thinking members of society. And in view of the seriousness of the case, the council found Paring unfit to practice and stripped him of his social worker's license. But seriously, on the one hand, you have PwC auditing MPW finding no fault with their reporting, according to generally accepted accounting principles. And then on the other, you have Viceroy that did all of that, saying that MPW is fraudulent and dishonest, etc. Well, glass house, throwing stones, I don't know. There's a lot of things that come to mind about that. In part 3, we'll discuss what Paring and Viceroy have been up to in the time after the social working days. If you don't want to wait, though, of course, the PDF to this lawsuit will be down below in the description. If you appreciate the fact that I'm willing to read through these kinds of things and go beneath the surface for you on different investments, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, help me build my audience, give it a like for the algorithm if you think people need to know about this situation with MPW and what the short reports really are all about. Consider becoming a member if you want to directly support me financially. Join me on Discord, link in the description. We discuss this and do research there all the time. Follow me on Twitter, yada yada. Take it easy, everybody.